For joining. First of all, I just want to let you know that this is being recorded. Welcome to the first ever American Center for Physics virtual art show. I'm Beth Cunningham, the Executive Officer of the American Association of Physics Teachers and President of the American Center for Physics. We've been welcoming the community to the American Center for Physics several times a year to join artists in a conversation about new art installations at ACP. Not only do community members get a chance to interact with the artists and see their work, but they also have an opportunity to learn more about our beautiful building that houses 3 physics societies: the American Institute of Physics, the American Physical Society, and the American Association of Physics Teachers. However, we're unable to hold the event this fall at the American Center for Physics because of the pandemic and the need for social distancing. Fortunately, the artists have agreed to do a virtual event, and this is our first ever virtual art reception. We hope to be able to hold art receptions at ACP in person in the future once we have a safe and effective vaccine, and we hope that happens soon because we would love to have you at ACP. And we really would be thrilled to have you back at our home building. I'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the land beneath us as we begin this event. While we are meeting virtually, we would like to acknowledge the land ACP occupies in the city of College Park, Prince George's County, Maryland. The Piscataway Indian Nation and the Piscataway Coney tribe, which include the Cedarville Band of the Piscataway and the Choctaw Band of the Piscataway, were recognized as indigenous to Maryland in 2012. Whereas the lands and the waterways of the Piscataway extend far beyond the state, the area is currently understood as lying within Prince George's, St. Mary's, and Charles counties, can be considered the core of Piscataway homelands. For many thousands of years, the deep relationships Piscataway peoples have had to these lands and the waterways constitute a significant part of their cultural heritage today. Of special significance within these areas are the archaeological, historical, and spiritual sites that are integral to the expression and transmission of the living cultural practices and beliefs of the Piscataway Indian Nation, the Piscataway Coney tribe, and the Cedarville Band of Piscataway, and the Choctaw Band of the Piscataway. We would like to acknowledge that the majority of us attending this event are in homes and workplaces that are located on indigenous lands. It is important during this event to remember that we occupy indigenous lands on a daily basis. Our educational and governmental institutions, for example, are built on a foundation of expropriated indigenous land. We will take a moment at the end of this statement to honor with gratitude the land you are on and the people who live there and still live there and care for it. After this convening, take time to learn about the history of the land you live and breathe on, the indigenous peoples connected to it, and the impact that history has had on current Native communities, particularly during the pandemic. Support Native communities near your homes and workplaces because the ongoing legacy of colonization, genocide, forced removal, ethnic cleansing, scientific experimentation, and stolen land are disproportionately causing suffering, especially now as COVID-19 continues to spread. Deepen your understanding of how these issues have impacted your Native colleagues, neighbors, and friends. Serve as well-informed allies and colleagues, leaders, mentors, teachers, and more. Now that we've heard the statement and we can ground ourselves for this event, let's take a moment to pause to acknowledge the land that we are sitting on. And there's a link in the slide that can take you to maps of indigenous lands in the US and beyond. We have some housekeeping items that we'd like to remind you about. All attendees are asked to keep themselves muted and turn off your video during the presentation and reception. Please submit your questions through the presentation Please submit your questions throughout the presentation via the chat function. You may also use your raise your hand function under the participant tab to be recognized at the end of the presentations. If you have technical difficulties, please contact Vanessa Bridges at vbridges@aip.org. Today's presentation is being recorded, as I mentioned at the very beginning. A link will be posted on the ACP website, acp.org/events/synergy-unbound. Again, I thank you for joining us. I would like to now introduce Sarah Tangi, ACP's curator. Sarah is an independent curator and an arts writer who strongly believes in hands-on, face-to-face collaboration with artists and the power of art to connect with the general public and our lived experiences. She's well known in the DC area, and we feel like we're extremely lucky to have Sarah as our curator for ACP for over 20 years. Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming and attending this virtual event. And thank you, Beth, for that great introduction. I'm very touched. It's been wonderful being guest curator for this exhibition series, and I want to thank ACP for its ongoing support of the visual arts. Back when I was first hired, I was a bit nervous knowing that my last science class was 9th grade biology. But one of the great joys of doing this series is that I get to learn about exciting advances in physics and mathematics, and it enriches my understanding of the world around me and the world beyond. And the other great joy is that I get to see artists and their work from a fresh perspective. And over the years, I've come to realize that at a fundamental level, scientists and artists share many aspirations. And though they speak a different language, the sense of wonder they experience is the same. Tonight, as Beth said, we're celebrating the premiere of Synergy Unbound with artists Finn Grabel and Myra Hecht. Synergy is a concept that's fascinated me for a very long time. From its original Greek meaning of working together, the word has become synonymous with the sum is greater than the parts. In the context of this exhibition, it's about looking at composition and meaning from as various dynamic states where combined activity has more impact, supersedes, in effect, if you will, the individual components. And it's also about connectivity. Finn achieves this through digital art, while Myra favors painting and sculpting by hand. They both pursue an interest in, of creating a liminal space where the immaterial and the material realms sort of coexist and cross-fertilize. And now I'd like to introduce the artist. Vin is a new find for me, and I was delighted to discover his work online. He's based in Baltimore, and he's shown his single channel video and video installation work, both nationally and internationally. And he's a regular collaborator with performing artists, choreographers, and poets. He has a MS from MIT Center for Advanced Visual Studies and a BA in studio art from Oberlin College. Then recently retired from UMBC's Department of Visual Arts, which he chaired from 2008 to 2015. Long fascinated by the flexibility of video as a medium, Vin keeps experimenting with new ways to incorporate ever-changing technology. By contrast, Myra and I have known each other for over 10 years. She's DC-based, and she holds a BA from American University in Washington, DC, and an MFA in painting from the San Francisco Art Institute. In Washington, D.C., she's represented by Addison Ripley Fine Art, and she currently teaches at the Corcoran School of the Arts and Design. In addition to exhibitions, her work can be found in several prestigious collections, such as Microsoft. As we will hear tonight, she coaxes meaning out of form and process. One of her favorite teaching pointers is, it's not so much what you paint, but how you paint it. And now I'd like to invite Vin to talk about his work.
Thanks very much, Sarah. And I want to start by thanking Sarah and everybody at ACP. It's been great to get to know you over Zoom, Vanessa, Margaret, Beth, Amy, Brad. And it'd be great to see you all in person at the exhibition in a regular kind of opening. But this is what we have right now, and I hope maybe toward the end of the exhibition run, we could gather at the gallery in the spring, perhaps. So as Sarah mentioned, I'm primarily a video artist, but I began painting. That's what I started studying back in college at Oberlin. And so I'm very concerned about the image. I have a focus on the quality of the image, even with my video work. And so I started doing essentially digital prints based on my video work. And this image you see right here, Spatial Overlay, is simply a snapshot of one frame of my video called Frontier. And the images that I'm going to show you, the 18 canvases that I'm going to show you are all based on a similar kind of arrangement dealing with a grid, kind of a window-like structure where two levels of reality are superimposed. Amy, we can go to the next slide. So the next 5 or 6 images are all, again, images from the video. And the 2 realities that I suggested are very, they are based on actual images that I shot with my video camera. So you can see a bit of cloud there, and those kind of vertical lines or striations are based on reflections in the water. Okay, Amy, we'll go to the next one. So these are kind of these two images came very quickly in the videotape, just one after another, lots of changes. Okay, Amy, next one, please. So one more from the videotape. I realized that there was a limitation with the video images, blowing them up and then printing them on canvas, because the image quality of a video image is not anywhere near as highly resolved as what you could get shooting with a regular kind of digital still camera. So let's go to the last one in this series. And yes, that's fine. That's great. So I want to move to the next series where I started. So Amy, the next one, please. Yeah, so I thought that I would start using a camera and focusing on still images. And I was able, therefore, to enhance the resolution quality. And what I began focusing on was images from television. What I'm doing here is shooting through a large lens that I made, basically a large 18 by 18 inch volume filled with water that I used to place in front of a TV. And so the images from the television would stretch and kind of striate. And then I would do the same kind of superimposition through this kind of window structure. Okay, next, please. And I also introduced a common theme of parking lots and combined the parking lot image, which is really a straight image, it's not manipulated, with the manipulated or altered images from TV. So my interest here was to kind of make a focus on kind of commercial shopping ideas. You know, our car culture and our TV culture kind of blended together. Okay, next, please. I should say that these are all multiples. I make between 5 and 10 of each. So they're similar to what a lithograph would be like on paper, but these instead are printed on canvas, because I really like the quality of painting that a digital print has on canvas. So again, I hope you are able to see them in person someday, perhaps. Okay, next, please. And again, another parking lot with again, a kind of a manipulated, stretched image from some kind of television commercial. The graphics, you know, printed or superimposed in the sky in the TV ad that I was shooting. Okay, next, please. So I began, those last few were quite small, just about 16 inches long. This next series are larger. They're 2 feet by 3 feet, 24 by 36 inches. And for most of these, I'm superimposing 2 images gathered through or shot through that lens. So you might be able to see or notice a face there on the right-hand side. This one's called Talking Heads. So it's a bit of a TV announcer there on the right. Okay, next one. And this one as well has some bits of facial characteristics. You know, ultimately, I'm really going for the composition. In this one, there are some representative elements, but I'm really focused on color, line, all through the window structure. Okay, next, please. Amy, can we have the next one? Thank you. Again, the images in the window shapes are quite abstract, but in the background, you can detect a kind of an advertising image, the 70% off from some ad. I have no idea from what, but you can begin to see the way the graphics are stretched through the lens. Okay, let's look at another one of these. Back to the parking lot motif, again, combining the fast moving quality of television with, I'm not sure why I liked the parking lots. Again, just kind of a reference to car culture and coming to malls, shopping. Okay, next. This one is a little bit harder to read. It's called Ghost Riders. I like the way that the window images are more kind of linked in with the cars. There's more, they're kind of combined and harder to distinguish between the two levels. But again, it's a TV image with the cars. Okay, next. A couple more here. This happens to be a car ad in the window shape combined with the straightly shot parking lot. But again, for me, it's all about color and the combination of the color. Okay, next. And this is the next to the last one, a little bit more abstract, but you can still get a reference to a smeared TV image. And I think we have one more, which is the only one I'm exhibiting that doesn't have the window structure. It's simply a single image shot from the camera at the TV through the lens. And this is just the kind of the strange result that I got. So I decided just to go with it as a single image. So it's called Encounter, kind of reminded me of the shot of the Earth from the capsule orbiting the moon, something along those lines. But yeah, lots of potential source material coming from the TV sets. So that is my slideshow, and I'll turn it back to who am I going to? Sarah, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Vin. And now we'll hear from Myra.
It's great to see so many people here this evening. And I want to thank Sarah so much for inviting me to participate in Synergy Unbound and for your beautifully written essay. And many thanks to everyone at ACP for putting together the virtual opening. It took a village to put this together. It was really great. So thank you. Before I give an artist talk, I often think about John Cage, and he had this famous line. He said, "I have nothing to say and I'm saying it." And so I go between not wanting to say anything about the work and then the fear that I'll say too much. So tonight, because of our allotted time, I've created a script, and this will help me land somewhere between saying nothing and everything. The work of mine that Sarah selected for this exhibition is from 3 painting series and 2 porcelain series spanning the last 8 years. First slide, please. 1 blue sentence. This painting and the next 3 paintings you'll see are all done in oil on canvas and are from my series titled All Things Vanish. Each piece is composed of deconstructing patterns, and the paintings are about change, impermanence, and the fragility of life. I'd like to linger just a little bit longer on this image so I can speak a little bit about my process. So I create constraints in my practice, which is a process of elimination and simplification. And doing this allows me to develop a singularity of vision and a pure abstract language that coaxes, as Sarah just mentioned, meaning out of form and process. So I'd like to just name some of the elements in my painting process now. The erasure of the brush mark, overlapping, transparency, the hard edge, repetition, and the circle, which is a mysterious and transcendental form that has meaning in every culture. And for me, they are symbolic portals into realms unseen and a signifier of life. And they're all hand-drawn. All of these physical qualities that you see in the paintings carry meaning. Among the many things that inform my work are nature, literature, psychology, philosophy, and poetry. Additionally, I've been long interested in and a practitioner of mindfulness and contemplative practices. Next image, please, Amy. Moving out from zero. Diamond, petal, and wing shapes are formed by painting interconnected circles. As the patterns are layered one over the other, the individual shapes disengage. They're seen floating on the edges of the canvas, coming in or going out of the frame. Next image, please. This image is titled Book of Days. I think in hindsight, this painting is about ritual, dailiness, and the passage of time. Even in the midst of this profoundly difficult time, I've found unexpected blessing in the slow pace of these days. And coming up in the next image is dance. This piece is a celebration of life. Things are in flux, constantly arising and disappearing. Everything is fleeting. When we truly understand this, we find joy and appreciation in the present moment and all that we hold dear. Now we'll look at Knocking on the Moonlit Door. This large painting and the next 4 paintings you'll see are from my series titled Knocking on the Moonlit Door. This title is inspired by a line from a poem, The Listeners, by Walter de la Mare. The phrase knocking on the moonlit door calls to mind the artist's search for personal truth and authentic voice. So this series, among other things, is about the creative process. My next painting, Dreamscape Night, reflects the awe-inspiring night sky and the mysteries that we imagine it holds. Rumi has a great line in one of his poems. It says, "The door is round and open." In this painting and all my work, there's a tension between stillness, motion, surface depth, center edge, and darkness and light. The next piece, Amy, please. Ink Dark Moon. This painting has a sense of dark rhythmic energy and invisible cosmic forces. When I start a painting, I have a loose idea and I proceed with any preliminary drawings. After the first mark on the canvas, each subsequent move is a response to all that came before. Most of my work is oil on canvas, so wet layers are painted over dry. And because of this, each painting is built up very slowly over time. The next piece is titled Circling. Every painting is an exploration for me of color relationships. Colors shift and change with the use of overlapping and transparency. You can see that pretty clearly in this image. As we move through the world, we too have this transformative power. The pandemic has made the interconnection and interdependence of all life viscerally real. And just today, before I give an artist talk, I start reading everything. And today I was reading Paul Crowther, who is a contemporary philosopher of aesthetics. And he wrote about the importance of having an experience of time, space, and our relations to other people aesthetically embodied in the work. And I thought that was so interesting because this is what I'm trying to do. So for you artists out there, I suggest, I think you'd really like reading Paul Crowther. Next painting, please. The next painting is Breath Within Breath. This piece seems to be unfolding from within. It's a meditation on vibrant stillness and the Zen concept of elegant simplicity. Now we'll look at the Blazing World series. This and the following couple images show selected paintings and fired porcelain sculptures from this series. The title is inspired by Siri Hastvedt's book, The Blazing World. It's a feminist novel about perception, prejudice, and a woman artist's struggle to be seen. And if you have not read this book, I recommend it. It's fantastic. Next image, please, Amy. The 36 small fluorescent acrylic paintings in the Blazing World series contain symbols of danger and protection, warped space, black hole explosions, colliding planetary orbs, and expanding stars. And the last image. I created the porcelain series to experience making elements in the paintings in three-dimensional form. My work is fueled by an inquiry into the nature of reality and our lived experience. It's a response to life that is often turbocharged, chaotic, and seemingly out of control. I counter this with a slow dance of contemplative painting that seeks to offer the viewer a momentary quieting of the mind and lifting of the spirit. Horace, the Roman poet, said, "Our lives are a brief circle." It's my hope that we all live ours in kindness and in peace. Thank you.
Thanks, Myra. Those were definitely inspiring words. Yeah, you just reminded me that a third, and not the only, but a third great joy of doing this series is that it always stretches my mind when I start reading about these advances in physics. And the winner of this year's Nobel Prize, if I remember correctly, Sir Roger Penrose, has this whole thing, and of course, I'm going to speak in physics for dummy language, but has this whole thing about universes appearing and then disappearing,
Right.
and going through a very similar life cycle to what we experience as human beings. And it just reinforces for me this incredible interconnectivity that we all experience, even though, of course, we're quite different. So now we're going to move into the Q&A portion of this evening. And just as a reminder, you can either ask questions via the chat function, or you can use the raise your hand function under the participants tab to be recognized. And then once you're recognized, you can feel free to turn on your video so we can see you. And again, if you have technical difficulties, please contact Vanessa Bridges. And today's presentation is being recorded. So if you haven't gotten enough of us today, you can always watch us again or share with your friends. All right. Now we'll start Q&A.
Okay, so the first question is from Anne Studdard, and it's for Vin. It is thrilling to see a fusion of your painting and video. Please describe the camera you use when shooting the TV.
Oh, hi, Anne. Thanks for that question. I've been using a number of video cameras. It's basically a high definition video camera. It's just somebody else asked me about the technological kind of setup. So I'll just quickly describe, I have a video camera on a tripod and then this lens in front of the television set. So I'm kind of mining and searching for images. Basically, it's kind of a hit or miss process. I shoot a lot of footage and then I go from there and see what I get. Well, that's for the video versions of it. And then with the still images that I showed you later, same thing with a DSLR, a digital still camera, single lens reflex camera, just snapping lots of images. Of course, the television images are going very, very quickly. And so it's again, hit or miss. I'm just seeing what I come up with, and then I sort the good from the bad and go from there. Thanks.
Next question goes to both artists. It says, I'm interested in the role of audience and dialogue as it relates to your work. As a maker, how interested are you in audience? Is it important to your practice for your work to be in dialogue with audience in order for it to be fully realized? Does audience have an impact on your practice? Is audience considered during making, and if so, how or when? That's for both artists.
Margaret, what was that last sentence?
It says, does audience have an impact on your practice? Is audience considered during making, and if so, how or when?
Take it away, Myra.
That's a good question. I've had curators say to me, do people respond to this work, or did people respond to this painting or not? And that always kind of like, I feel a little like taken aback when someone asks me that. I don't think that I could really be painting any paintings other than the paintings I'm painting. Of course, I want people to respond to them. And I love to hear what people think or what they're getting from them. And I want people to like them and want to own them and, have them in their homes and all of that. It's very important to me, yes. But does it change how I make my paintings or what I'm painting about? No, I think that that's impossible. I mean, I just feel like I'm painting the work that I'm making, the work that I'm making, and that's it. And it's put out into the world. And I hope that people will respond.
Yeah, I would pretty much go along with what Myra said there. I'm not, I make my work based on my impulse to pursue a particular theme or idea. At the moment, I'm always thrilled to be able to exhibit my work either in a real gallery or online. With video, it's a little easier to distribute the work. So, but the response I get is very valuable. But as reinforcing what Myra said, I'm not making the work because I want to please a particular facet of of the audience or the particular demographic. I'm just responding to my own inner impulses in that regard. Not sure if that answered Sandra's question or not.
For then, I would be interested in the technological approach.
Okay, yeah, question, and I think I covered it to a certain extent, except to say that the grid image, both the video and the still images start with the grid window structure, as I mentioned, and I created used Photoshop to create the the window structure in Photoshop. It's a black on white image that I can then superimpose one set of images into the black and another set of images into the white. So that's how the two so-called realities get superimposed. And then I can kind of shift those around in Photoshop. And I did a similar kind of thing with the video. You're not seeing the video. I might give a link to the video somehow in chat or as a follow-up, so that anybody who's interested in seeing the video and how those stills kind of emerge from the video. So I think that covers it. I think you were asking how technology in terms of how the images are constructed, then simply Photoshop.
Okay, the next question is from Eliza Perkins, and it goes to Myra. I am very interested in your use, relationship, and choices of color. Sometimes a study of one color of various shades, sometimes 2 to 3 colors, then suddenly all colors, sometimes highlighting one color in the foreground, sometimes in the background, was striking and unexpected, and I love it.
Oh, thank you. So, I think most of my paintings have a restricted palette. So the way I paint also is that the light colors most often are on the surface. It makes the painting feel like it's breathing. So I start, which is really unusual, I think, of a way to start a painting. I start with darker colors quite often, and then I build up to lighter colors. And, you know, when you teach, usually you teach the opposite. So I like a restricted palette, and I also love, like, I have a very large painting that I did a few years ago that's all blue, all light blues, but just variations of light blue. So very subtle value changes. And I really loved seeing that and working with that. I love just tweaking, you know, the color. So it's just a tiny bit different than the color that it sits next to. I love color. I mean, it's just a joy. It's funny, you know, when I start painting, I'll say, okay, I'm going to use blue and white and pink in this painting. And it seems like every time I start out that way, the painting ends up like black and purple and green. So it just kind of proves the point that paintings have a mind of their own, and the artist really needs to step away and kind of drop their ego and listen to what the painting is saying. It's almost like having a relationship with a person. You know, you have to listen to what the painting needs. And if you can do that, then if you had blue in your head, but the painting says, no, 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 it needs purple. If you put purple down there, it usually works out better. So that's my relationship to color. Thanks for that question. That was a good one.
Then another question, can you have the artists talk about accident and control in their work?
Okay, well, I could start that. So I have a lot of control in my work. I mix the paint, it's very loose, and there's a lot of medium in it. And I'm sort of, again, I feel like it's a relationship to the paint. I'm sort of like begging the paint to do what I want it to do. And my touch is very soft, a light touch, a sensitive touch. And I try to get that hard edge. And so there's a lot of control. And also, so I mean, it's interesting just to think of an artist and what their personality must be, and look at, you know, you look at their work and you think, how does that reflect the person who is painting it? And I don't have a lot of, well, my work can't really stand a lot of accident. It's hard for me to change something because everything is so transparent that if there's a mistake or an accident, it's very difficult to change. So oftentimes I think about that in relation to life. You know, you say something terrible or nasty to somebody, and it's out there and it's there, and you can't really take it back. And so sometimes I feel that way about my work, that I put it there and it's there and it's really hard to change it. And I sort of like that, you know, so it takes some thought in between each move. I have to think about it and sort of relate to the painting as I'm doing that to see what I have to do next. So thanks for that. Vin, what do you think about that?
Well, I do rely on accident quite a lot. I mean, really what I'm doing is, as I mentioned about how I'm grabbing images with a camera, I'm, you know, not sure what that's going to be, but I'm trying to corral those images into this kind of window framework, you know, try to find some control, some way of combining them. So, but that definitely starts with kind of an open-ended search for, or like I said, a kind of a mining of potential imagery. And it really goes back to how I started painting when I was in college. I used a kind of a very watery method of painting acrylic paint horizontally. And the paint was in liquid pools, and it would kind of, you know, mush around. I would get kind of various images based on that. And then after that dried, go back into it with a brush and refine or find some shape to bring to the painting. So it's similar to, I guess you could say I've been doing that type of thing all my life, kind of utilizing the benefits of accident and serendipity, but then trying to bring some control and formality to it.
Okay, we have one again from Amy to Myra. Thanks for the discussion of your color palette. How did you come up with the palette in breadth within breadth and also circling?
Well, breath within breath was a conscious choice, and it happens to be one of the pieces that worked out the way I thought it would in the beginning. You know, I love black and pink. I just love that combination. It's sort of like dark and soft at the same time. So I like that contrast. And I knew I wanted to start with black, and I wanted to have pink and a little green. And, you know, I wanted to end with white. And it just happened to work out. And that's one of my favorite paintings, actually. I love the feeling of that one. Margaret, what was the second part of that question?
And also circling.
Circling. So circling, it's interesting that you ask about circling. Circling was a conscious choice to choose color and lights and darks to create as much depth as I could. And so usually I don't think about that. But I realize there's kind of a secret to it. I'm not going to give away my secret, but anyway. And so that was what I was really thinking about in that painting, how to use lights and darks and warms and cools. I'm saying too much now, but how to use those aspects to get as much suggested depth in the painting. And that one really does have, I think, more suggested depth, more depth than a lot of them. And so it worked. But, you know, I don't like to think that much when I paint. So that was really like one out of all of them, I think, in that body of work that I really consciously thought about that.
Okay, and this is a compliment from Tom back to Sarah. Kudos to Sarah for pairing two outstanding artists with complementary scenes of space.
Thank you.
And I think that those are all the questions.
Could I add something?
It says one more for Myra. Along the lines of from Eliza Perkins. I think we answered that one. Oh, no. It says, along the lines of the color question,
Yeah.
I was struck by how you vary from soft edges, the blues in parentheses, to the hard edges, the black and white zigzag lines. I ask because everything I do looks basically the same, haha. And I'm interested in whether it is inspiration or a question you begin with, or do you consciously push your own boundaries to get such variation?
Let's see. Well, I guess I could say about variation. So, you know, I use the circle a lot, like in the Blazing World series, which there are 36 small panels that took 2 years to do. There was a lot of variation in those 36 panels that hang very closely together. That's like a whole series. So consciously, I wanted a lot of variation. And, you know, we talked about, you know, exploding stars and the warp space and all of that. But normally that was like a thing in itself. But normally when I do an oil painting series, I'm using the circle a lot. And so that is like the way I get the paint on. I paint a circle. And so because that's a given, I need other variation in the work, or I would just, you know, I go crazy just doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I do start with this inspiration. So I'll change the color combinations. I'll change what's inspiring me. A lot of times I think of these paintings as space. Actually, they're spaces. And I try for variation. Yeah, absolutely.
Another question, Myra. This one is from a viewer. It says, your geometrics are so precise. Are they all from your brush?
Yes. So all the circles are hand drawn. I don't use a compass or anything like that. And the larger they get, so in the big paintings, it's harder to get a circle. None of them are perfect. Some of them look more perfect than others. And I'm getting better at it. I've been doing it for 20 years, so I'm definitely getting better. Smaller circles are much easier, to do. But when I have to stand back and I'm doing, let's say, a circle that's this big, it gets very irregular. And so I take my time and I'm using my brush and I'm actually just trying to make it as perfect as it can. And so I think a lot about Agnes Martin, who wrote about perfection. And so the reason why I do this by hand, I mean, some artists will say to me, what, you're doing this by hand? Why would you do that? I mean, all you do is have to have a stencil or something. It takes no time at all. But I really like playing with that edge of perfection and imperfection. So Agnes Martin used to say, there's only perfection in the mind's eye. We don't see perfection in this world. And so when I'm using the brush and I'm trying to go for perfection, but I know I cannot hit perfection, it's impossible. It's just like pointing to what it means to be human. And so I put that effort, that extra effort in to do that. And it's like a meditation for me, and I've been doing meditation for so many years. So I like that attention. I love that there's something about that attention to the hard edge and trying to get this perfect form that I can never quite get. And then I have to try again. And so there's a joy in getting to try again too. So I just keep trying and trying and trying, like we all do in life. We try to hit the mark. And if we don't hit the mark, what can you do? You have to try again. So I'm sort of, it's like art follows life and life follows art. So.
Okay, another question from Sarah. I think they both enlist the idea of portal. For them, it's the TV. And for Myra, it's the circle. Please elaborate briefly.
Then you go.
Let's see, the portal, so meaning kind of an opening to something else. A lot of, I think of the work as exercises in figure ground. A successful image is one where that figure ground relationship flips back and forth. So there's a relationship between what's a confusion, a happy confusion with what's in front, what's behind. I'm not sure what you mean, Sarah, by the TV as the portal. I mean, the TV images are merely a kind of an image box, a source of imagery. On the other hand, I do focus on, kinds of societal implications of television watching and the impact of our media culture. That's part of the imagery, I guess. But I guess that is tied in with the window structure as well, because I hadn't really thought about it that way. So sure, Myra.
Well, for me, the circle, of course, has a lot of meaning. One of the meanings is that it's a portal into realms unseen. And so I do believe that there are many realms that we don't see. And so that's sort of important to me to think about it as a pregnant space, a very fertile space through which we can imagine all things arising and dissipating like we experience in life. Everything is coming and going, is fleeting. And so I think of this circle as being a signifier of that for me. And and that, and also it's, I think when I first started painting the circle, actually at first it was cellular. It was sort of an oval shape, and then it kind of morphed. I started morphing into a circle, and it became a signifier of the human life or soul. And so, yeah, it's a portal for me into a lot of realms, for sure.
Okay, and we will take the last question. This one is from Sandra Abbott. Myra, since you meditate, have you also ever practiced Enzo circles in the mindfulness practice of circle paintings and Asian calligraphy and ink painting traditions?
Yes, well, only once, really. My husband has done that. Last summer, I worked with a really wonderful, she's a master printer around here, Susan Goldman. And one of the layers in the prints was an Enzo. And so I had to do that by hand over and over again to then prepare that for the print. So that was really my first experience in doing that for a particular artistic reason. But I could see how people would want to do that repetitively. It's very similar to my practice with the circle, that attention that it takes. And it's very similar, actually. It's a great question. Thanks for that. I almost didn't even connect that together until this minute. So thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank everybody. Sarah, Myra, Vin, thank you so much. That was really enjoyed the presentation, and also the staff at ACP that helped with the presentations tonight, to Margaret and Vanessa, Brad, and Amy. You really helped to make things go smoothly. Our first ever virtual art reception. So I just want to remind you that the presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the acp.org site, acp.org/events/synergy-unbound. This concludes the reception, and have a wonderful evening.